7 signs your presence unsettles the room. Carl Jung. Some people enter a room and instantly shift the energy, not by what they say, but by who they are. If your presence makes others uncomfortable without trying, it's not because something's wrong with you. It's because something's different about you. Carl Jung called this the individuated self, the person who no longer plays by the psychological rules of the tribe. Most people live to blend in, but you exist to disrupt, not intentionally, not maliciously, but naturally. Your silence speaks louder than others' noise. Your gaze holds a mirror to their masks, and that alone, that's enough to stir unease. You don't need to speak to make people feel exposed. Your very stillness forces reflection, because when someone carries deep self-awareness, it shakes those who avoid their own. You might notice people glance at you, then look away. They fumble their words. They try too hard to impress, or too hard to ignore. That's not your doing. That's their discomfort with authenticity. Jung believed that when you've done the inner work, faced your shadows, integrated your chaos, you become a walking contradiction to those who haven't, and they don't know whether to fear you, admire you, or both. You might wonder why small talk exhausts you, or why you find it hard to stay in shallow spaces. It's because your presence demands depth, not through force, but by default. When you show up with intention, people feel it. And for those hiding behind performance, that's uncomfortable. They're not used to being seen, really seen. Jung believed that once a person steps into their true self, they emit a psychological pressure. Not aggression, but density. Like gravity. You don't bend to the room bends around you. And whether they love you or fear you, they feel it. What makes you unsettling isn't loudness, it's clarity. Most people operate in noise, emotional reactivity, insecurity, ego. But you've made peace with silence. You've stared at your own darkness long enough that other people's shadows don't scare you. That calm, that unsettling calm, becomes your power. Jung called it the shadow-integrated psyche, the kind of person who doesn't flinch at pain, doesn't chase validation, and doesn't play roles. You carry something rare, wholeness. And in a fragmented world, wholeness feels threatening because it reminds people of the work they're avoiding. You don't ask for attention, and yet, attention finds you. Not because you perform, not because you display, but because you embody a kind of authenticity most people have forgotten even exists. There's a stillness in your presence, a gravity that holds the room together or pulls it apart without a single word, while others scramble to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. You move like someone whose sense of worth is unshakable. Every glance, every gesture, every subtle motion communicates the quiet knowledge of self-possession. That quiet confidence. It disorients the insecure. It unsettles those who measure their value through comparison, competition, and applause. They don't know how to process someone who stands so firmly in themselves without trying. Because if you can be complete, aware, and serene without needing their approval, what does that say about the fragile games they're playing? Jung would say, you've stopped performing from the persona, the mask created for the comfort of others. You've stopped trying to blend, to fit, to reassure. And instead, you've begun living from the self, raw, unfiltered, undeniable. That's power in its purest form. Everywhere you go, you activate contrast, not by speaking loudly, not by doing anything overtly dramatic, but simply by existing as a mirror for reality. Your presence forces people to face the things they've suppressed, their own doubts, their envy, their unexamined certainty. It is not cruelty, it is clarity. And the deeper you integrate your authenticity, the more polarizing you become. Neutrality becomes impossible. People cannot remain indifferent around someone who has anchored themselves so fully in their own truth. They either feel drawn toward you, inspired to reach beyond their limits, or they recoil, unsettled by the confrontation with their own shadows. Both reactions are evidence of impact. The man who walks with integrated darkness does not merely walk through a space. He alters the energy, reshapes the atmosphere, and forces reflection. He is a living challenge, a quiet revelation, a presence that leaves traces long after he has gone. You've realized by now that the reason you were always called too much, too different, or too intense was never a flaw. It was a signal, a marker etched into your very being that you were never intended to follow the script handed to others. While the masses find safety in conformity, you discovered purpose in solitude. And that solitude, that deliberate retreat into the spaces where depth lives, refined you. It sharpened your intuition, making your inner voice unmistakable. It honed your discernment, so you can perceive subtle truths that others miss entirely. While the world clings to noise and distraction, you walk alone, observing, reflecting, mastering yourself. And in this mastery lies untouchable power. This is leadership in its rawest, most unassailable form, not through titles, accolades, or commands, but through presence. You do not demand influence, you radiate it. You do not seek followers, you inspire alignment. This is the quiet, unassuming force that shapes outcomes before others even realize a shift has occurred. By this point, you've stopped apologizing for who you are. You no longer feel compelled to explain your silence, justify your edges, or water down your truth to appease those who cannot handle it. You have walked through fires that would have consumed others, and you emerged not only intact, but transformed, colder, wiser, quieter, yet infinitely more potent. You no longer seek understanding, you demand nothing from anyone. What you seek is to be felt, and when you enter a room, people feel it, even if they cannot articulate why. Your presence unsettles, awakens, and transforms simply because it exists. You are the one who never fit in, not by accident, but by design. You were never meant to conform. You were meant to awaken, to disturb, to lead. And the most remarkable part? You do it without ever asking permission, without ever seeking validation, without ever needing to justify your existence. That is the true power of one who walks alone, not as an outcast, but as a catalyst for evolution, a living testament to the strength and sovereignty of the individuated self. When you walk into a room and unsettle it, it's not chaos, it's influence. You move like gravity itself has a preference, pulling attention without demand. People notice your alignment with yourself before they notice anything else. That alignment is rare. Most drift through life, tethered to opinion, habit, and expectation. You are anchored in truth, and the energy you radiate exposes every compromise others have accepted. The quiet awareness you carry isn't a performance. It's a mirror, reflecting insecurities and unacknowledged desires. And the more they resist it, the more your presence grows. Jung would call this individuation in motion, the embodiment of a self fully integrated, unafraid, and unapologetic. You don't just occupy space, you calibrate it, and in doing so, you become impossible to ignore. This is the final evolution of the presence that unsettles, mastery without display. You don't need to prove your value, justify your choices, or explain your silence. Every glance, every pause, every measured word carries authority because it is rooted in internal sovereignty. People around you may try to imitate, to challenge, to undermine, but none can replicate the power that comes from complete integration of self. It's not about control over others. It's control over your own mind, your own reactions, your own energy. And that is the truest form of influence. Invisible, undeniable, and eternal. You don't lead by voice, by position, or by noise. You lead by essence. And in that, the world can only follow, wonder, and respect.